If you're new to our channel, we'd love to have you join our little community. Just hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. We promise it will be worth your while.
If you boys don't settle down in the next 5 seconds, Josh's mother screamed, you're going to be sorrier than you can imagine. Josh Tinker and his 2 cousins, Todd and Tim Jansen, were busy shouting, screaming, and slamming doors while their parents tried to talk in another part of the Jansen's home. Lisa Jansen hoped that this visit wouldn't be quite as costly as the last one when the boys managed to knock a small television set off its stand. She and her sister Allison agreed that something had to be done before the boys caused even more serious damage. Her husband had died when Todd and Tim were young, and it had never been easy for her to control her sons. Even her brother-in-law, Dave, had trouble with them. Alone, the 3 boys were not too bad. At least not as bad as some boys could be. Once they got together, though, the trouble they caused seemed never-ending. There has to be a way to settle them down, Lisa said in a worn-out tone of voice. We're planning that vacation next summer, and it'll be pure hell if we don't. Josh's report card wasn't that bad, Dave said. If you could ignore all of the comments about his misbehaving in class and problems on the playground. Sounds like the same report card my boys got. Allison sighed. A teacher's nightmare. A loud crash from another room brought the boys' parents to their feet, hoping that it wasn't anything important this time. To their dismay, upon reaching the site of the crash, they discovered a large bookshelf had been toppled with books and pictures everywhere. That's it, Allison cried. I'm not going to put up with this any longer. Let's keep them separated until we can settle them down. We'll miss you, Dave joked. I'm sure we'll think of something, Lisa promised. Maybe just not seeing each other will teach them a lesson. Let's hope so, Allison said as she hugged her sister. Keep in touch. As they drove home, Josh's parents lectured him on how important it was to behave himself, to have good manners, and not to act like an animal. It was a lecture he'd heard before, many times before, and it was obvious as his parents watched him stare out the window that it wasn't doing any better this time. Months went by, and there seemed to be no hope for making the boys behave. Their parents had tried suggestions from school counselors and had read everything they could get their hands on. Then one day, Allison's phone rang. It was Lisa calling to say she thought she knew of a way to solve their problems. It was unorthodox, she admitted, but if Allison and Dave would bring Josh over, she'd show them how she'd gotten her sons to behave. As they drove to Lisa's house the following Saturday, Allison and Dave were hoping that it would be a quiet day, that somehow Lisa had stumbled onto what everyone else had missed. Now, maybe they'd be able to relax and enjoy themselves when visiting with Lisa. Lisa greeted them with a big smile and asked them to sit in the living room while she got a few things she wanted to show to them. Where's Todd and Tim? Josh asked. Do I have to sit here all day? Todd and Tim will be with us in a couple of minutes, Josh, Lisa said with a smile. Just be patient for a little while longer, okay? Lisa seemed so much happier than ever before, Allison thought to herself. Whatever she finally did to calm her sons down must have worked, or she wouldn't be this calm, this happy. Look at this, Lisa said proudly as she handed report cards to Allison and Dave. Did you ever think they'd get report cards like these? I'm impressed, Dave whistled. And B's. Good marks for behavior. Are these your boys, Lisa? Lisa smiled for a moment. Sometimes she grinned. Sometimes Dave was puzzled at her response. What do you mean, Lisa? Lisa didn't answer. Instead, she went to the steps and called for Todd and Tim to come downstairs. No, Mom, please, Tim cried from the second floor. Please, we'll be good. We promise we'll be good, Mom, Todd pleaded. We promise to be good, Remember our little walk, boys." Lisa called back, "If you don't come down now, we'll go for a walk later." Moments later, two very sad 11-year-old boys descended the steps very slowly. There was a loud gasp from Dave and Allison when two cute girls in matching pink and blue Southern Belle type outfits came into view. "Are they who I think they are?" asked Dave, obviously amazed at what he was seeing. "You've got to be joking," Allison exclaimed. "These girls aren't really." Walking over to where the girls stood, Lisa put her hand on the shoulder of the one in the blue dress and tapped the girl on the shoulder. The girl took several small steps towards Allison, Dave, and Josh. Then, while holding a parasol that matched her dress in on hand, she carefully gathered the full skirt of her dress and curtsied. "Hello, Uncle Dave and Aunt Allie. My name is Christine. Of course, you may remember my daughter Christine here, better as my son Todd," Lisa said proudly. She then gestured towards the girl in the pink dress, who also curtsied and introduced herself as Jennifer. "Isn't she adorable?" Lisa asked gleefully. "Now please go over and sit on the sofa, girls." Allison was dumbfounded. She watched as the two girls smoothed their skirts and sat ever so gently on the sofa, holding their parasols in their laps to prevent their dresses from being forced up by the full petticoats they wore. They were wearing the cutest matching dresses, frilly petticoats, white stockings, and shoes which matched their dresses. They were every mother's dream of what a daughter could look like, yet these sweet girls were her nephews. I said it was unorthodox, but it was the only thing left. Lisa explained, "One day it seemed so obvious to me, if they couldn't be young gentlemen, then make them young ladies. They don't dare run wild dressed like this." "That's one hell of a solution, Lisa," Dave said as he stared at the boys. "I still can't believe these girls are really Tim and Todd, though. What about school, Lisa?" Allison asked. "Surely they don't go to school dressed like this." "Don't be silly, Allison," Lisa replied. "They go to school as Todd and Tim, but at home it's strictly Christine and Jennifer. If they misbehave, they know I'll take them for a walk around the neighborhood in these outfits." "It sure as hell made a difference in their grades," Dave replied as he looked over the report cards. "I'm just not sure it's the right thing to do, though." "I think it's a riot," Josh said as he suddenly broke up laughing. "I think they look so cute in their pretty little dresses, and those umbrellas are just perfect." Josh jumped up from the sofa where he'd been sitting and ran over to his cousins. Reaching for the hems of their dresses, he exclaimed, "Let's see if you're wearing anything pretty underneath." Before he could raise Todd's dress, his father grabbed him and yanked him back to the couch. "Settle down now, Josh," Dave ordered. "Behave yourself for once in your life." "But they're so cute, Dad," laughed Josh. "Maybe I can get a kiss from one of them." "Sit down, Josh," Dave said forcefully. "Your cousins have enough problems without your help." "Just one kiss. Please, Christine," Josh said as he puckered his lips. "How long did it take to get these grades?" Allison asked her sister. "After a month in dresses, they became model students," Lisa replied. "Their teachers couldn't believe the change." "Neither can I." Josh snickered as he tried to get to his cousins again. This time, it was Allison who stopped him. "Your father warned you to behave, Josh," she admonished. "We're not going to tell you again. Wait until I tell all of my friends about my cousins, the queers." Josh sneered, all prettied up in girls' clothes. "That's it, Josh," Dave screamed. "I've taken all I'm going to take from you." Turning to Lisa, he said simply, "Will you help?" "I'd love to," Lisa smiled. "Okay with you, Allie?" she asked. Josh's mother stared at the ill-mannered brat sitting on the couch behind her, then at the two well-behaved young ladies on the other couch. "Yes," she said in a calm voice. "It's okay. I thought you'd agree." "Allie," Lisa said, "so I took the liberty of setting out a few things in my room upstairs. Why don't you get him started, and I'll be along to help." "Get up and go with your mom, Josh," Dave ordered. If you make so much as a sound, he started to unfasten his belt. Josh's eyes grew wide with terror. He couldn't decide which he feared more, his father's belt or what was waiting for him upstairs. His father had never beaten him, but now was willing to do it with a belt. That threat worried him most of the time, so he meekly followed as his mother led him up the steps. Josh wanted to cry as he walked into his aunt's room, and his mother shut the door behind him. His eyes followed his mother over to the bed, where his fate awaited him. He watched anxiously as his mother began to sort through the clothes on the bed. "Looks like Aunt Lisa thought of everything for you, Josh," she said as she pointed to the clothes on the bed. Panties, a training bra, petticoat, stockings, shoes. I'll bet there's a pretty dress around here somewhere. Opening the closet door, she instantly found what she was looking for, a yellow dress which was a perfect match for the dresses his cousins wore. Josh's heart skipped a beat when he saw what was on the hanger with the dress, a yellow parasol just like his cousins were carrying. "Take off all of your clothes and put these on," his mother said, handing him a pair of silky yellow panties. "I'll be right back, so get busy or I'll send you father up." As his mother closed the door behind her, Josh quickly began to take off all of his clothes. After removing his underwear, he stood there staring at the panties on the bed. There must be a way out of this, he thought. Suddenly, he heard his father's voice outside of the door. "You'd better be getting changed, Josh." His hands shaking, Josh pulled on the panties and called for his mother. To his surprise, the door opened and both his parents walked into the room. His mother began showing his dad the clothes that Josh would be wearing, explaining how each item would work to make the total outfit complete. Without a word, his dad sat down in a chair to watch his son's transformation into a girl. The first thing he had to do was to pay careful attention to his mother's instructions for putting on a pair of white stockings. He followed her instructions and carefully worked first one foot, then the other into the stockings before pulling them up to his waist. Next, he started at the ankles and gently smoothed them all the way up to his waist. He held his arms straight out so that his mother could place them through the straps of the training bra his aunt had so thoughtfully provided. He felt his mother doing something in the back, and as the bra tightened to his chest, he realized that he had been fastened into something he could not get off without help. It was too tight to pull over his head, and never having worn one before, he couldn't imagine how it could be opened, even if he could reach behind him. "He looks cute in those things, Ollie," he heard his father say from behind him. "I'll bet he looks even prettier than Christine and Jennifer downstairs." Cute, he thought in disgust. He didn't want to look cute. Cute was for girls and sissies, and he certainly wasn't a girl or a sissy. "Hold your hands up, dear," he heard his mother say, and lost in his thoughts, he automatically raised his arms above his head. Instantly, the word sissy came rushing back to him as he felt the cool fabric of the petticoat cover him from his chest to his knees. Looking down, he knew why that word had jumped back into his head. The petticoat was silky and smooth from the top to the waist where it flared out in several layers of lace. He could push thoughts of panties, bras, and even stockings from his mind, but not this. Not the petticoat which his mother was now busily adjusting the straps on. No, this made him a sissy, even without the dress which he knew would be coming next. He wanted to run away from his mother, to get as far away from that room as possible, but where could he go? His cousins, who had been the best buddies a boy could ever have wanted, were sitting downstairs dressed up and behaving like a couple of sweet little girls, and he was next. His mother was lowering the dress over his head and straightening it out while he stood there helpless, just like a good little girl. Soon he'd be brought down to be shown off to his aunt and cousins, just another pretty little sissy. Once Josh's dress was all zipped and buttoned, his mother called for his aunt to finish making him look just right. His aunt brushed his long, thick hair first one way, then another, then sprayed it with water and wrapped it around a curling iron. She then had him step into a pair of yellow shoes with just a slight heel, handed him the parasol that went with his dress, and stepped back with his parents to admire her new niece. Josh felt unbelievably silly, standing there in a frilly dress and girls' underwear while his family made a huge fuss over how darling he looked, what a pretty young lady he made, and how well the outfit fit him. "It's perfect on him," Josh's mom exclaimed. "He looks like he belongs on the front porch of a big southern house, sitting on a swing, sipping a cool drink." "Even I don't believe it," his dad said. "But you're absolutely right, Lisa. There's no way he'll misbehave in that outfit." "How do you like it, Josh?" his mother asked. "Think you could get used to being a cute girl?" "I hate it," Josh screamed. "I look just like my sissy cousins and I hate it." "You're only a sissy if you misbehave, Josh." His aunt told him, "Then your parents will let all of your friends see what a sissy you are. And if I don't misbehave?" Josh asked, seeing a possible way out. "Then no one will think you're a sissy," his aunt explained. "It's that easy. Now let's go down to show Christine and Jennifer their pretty new cousin." With that, she took him by the hand and led him back down to where his cousins still sat very properly watching television. "Chrissy, Jenny, please come over here and meet your new cousin." Lisa hesitated for a moment, then turned to her sister. "I'm sorry, but what was your daughter's name again?" she asked. "Ashley," Dave said quickly. "Our daughter's name is Ashley." Allison smiled. "That's a very pretty name, Dave. I like it. Ashley it is." Lisa turned back to her sons. "Jenny, Chrissy, I'd like you to meet your cousin Ashley." "I'm sure you know what to do, Ashley," Josh's father said. "Just like your aunt taught you." Josh could feel the heat from his face blushing. Yes, he knew exactly what he was supposed to do, but that didn't make it any easier. "Be polite, Ashley," his mother prodded. Still blushing, Josh held his parasol firmly, grasped his skirt in each hand, and curtsied to his cousins. "Hi, Ashley," Jenny said politely. "You look really nice, Ashley." Chrissy added, "Look at me and smile, girls." Lisa called. As Josh turned to see what his aunt wanted, he was blinded by the flash of a camera. "Now curtsy for me, ladies." Todd and Tim smiled and curtsied for their mother, but Josh stood there with a defiant look on his face. Dave was about to say something, but Lisa stopped him. "Relax, Dave. It'll take a little time. She'll get used to it soon enough." "Why don't you girls take Ashley upstairs and show her your rooms?" Lisa asked. "I'm sure she'd love to see them." Todd and Tim smiled at their mother. "Okay, Mom." "Come on, Ashley. Let's go upstairs and play." "Aren't we taking a chance, leaving them alone?" Dave asked. "Not really." Lisa grinned. "Come with me. I'll show you why." The adults followed as the three pretty boys slowly made their way up the steps. "I can remember a time when they would have nearly killed each other running up these steps," Allison said in amazement. "It's so odd watching them walk so slowly and carefully." "That's why I chose those outfits for them to wear at first," her sister explained. "I wanted them to constantly know how they were dressed, so it had to be something special, something frilly and oh so girlish." "Those dresses look awfully familiar," Allison said. "Didn't we have dresses like that when we were little? I wondered how long it would take you," laughed her sister. "That's what gave me the idea, sis. I found myself wondering why they couldn't behave as nicely as we did when we were little. Why did boys have to be so rough and hard to control? Why couldn't boys be more like girls? And of course, how better for them to be more like girls than to actually have to be girls for a while?" Dave completed her thought for her. "Sounds good to me," exclaimed Allison. "It's only at home, and it will teach them a valuable lesson." "And what would that be?" Dave laughed. "How to match a purse and shoes. I'll settle for how to play without breaking things. So of course, I thought that if boys had to go through what girls went through, they'd be much better behaved. Those dresses should be perfect for that." laughed Dave. I couldn't imagine them feeling much like boys while dressed like that. You know, Lisa laughed. I think he's catching on quickly. Let's hope your son is that smart. Don't tell me, Dave exclaimed as they opened the door to a bedroom done up in soft pastels, dolls and stuffed animals resting on the canopied double bed. Their bedroom, too. Pretty, isn't it? Lisa asked proudly. A girl's dream bedroom. Aren't you taking this just a little far? Dave asked with growing concern. I mean, they are boys, remember. Only in school, Dave. Lisa replied tersely. At home, they're girls, and they'll stay that way if they don't learn to behave. Lisa's right, Dave, Allison added. Look at how well behaved they are today, compared to the last time we were here. No one wanted to have us visit with the boys for fear of what they'd do. Now look at how calm they are. I suppose you're right, Dave admitted reluctantly. But what about? Let's leave the girls alone and we can talk downstairs, Lisa suggested. Alone? Questioned Dave. Aren't we taking a chance? That they'll get into some sort of mischief? Lisa smiled. In that room? In those dresses? I doubt it. I see your point. Dave chuckled. Let's go, Allison. We have a lot to talk about. Once the adults were gone, Josh quickly turned to his cousins. Come on, they're gone. Let's get changed. Todd and Tim looked at each other and shook their heads. You don't get it, do you? Don't get it, do you? Dee asked. There's nothing to change into even if we wanted to. What do you mean by? Wanted to, Josh asked, bewildered. You mean you like wearing sissy clothes? Look, Josh, Tim said. Either we're good girls and wear these things around the house, or we'll end up going to school as Jenny and Chrissy. That crazy, Josh shot back. They're just trying to scare us. Josh quickly jumped up and flung open the closet door. His eyes opened wide in disbelief as he stared into a closet filled with dresses and skirts. Get serious, he said. Where are your pants? Todd looked over at Tim and shrugged his shoulders. The chest of drawers in there. Take your pick. Josh rushed to the chest of drawers and opened one drawer after another, only to find nothing but girls' pants in various colors and styles, each pair as pretty as the next. I meant boys' clothes, you idiots, he fumed. You know, like you wear to school. Mom keeps them in her closet, Tim replied, looking up from his fashion magazine, but her door's locked, so you can forget that. You mean we're really stuck like this? He asked, motioning towards his dress. You're lucky, Todd added, not taking his eyes off the needlepoint picture of a cat that he was working on. At least you'll get to take the dress off when you leave. Maybe your dad won't let your mom dress you up like ours does. I hope so. Josh sighed, flopping back down on the bed and flipping up his dress and petticoat. I can't believe he let them do this much to me. Downstairs in the kitchen, Lisa was explaining everything to Allison and Dave. They fought me like crazy for a couple of days, she said. They finally gave up when I said we were going shopping at the mall in those dresses. You never saw two more terrified boys than they were as we pulled out of the driveway. How long have they been dressing like girls? Allison asked. Most importantly, though, Dave asked, do you really think that it's a good thing to dress boys up like girls? Hey, one at a time. Lisa said. I explain it all. Just give me a moment. First of all, Dave, she said slowly and emphatically. My sons are not just being dressed up like girls. When they're not in school, I insist that they are girls. They dress and act just like any other girls their age would. If you're really serious about Josh's behavior problem, you'll do the same to him. Allison took Dave's hand and squeezed it tight. It's the best thing for him, Dave, she said softly. He'll be impossible to control in a few years if we don't stop him now. I realize that, Dave answered, but I hate to have my son running around all dressed up like a girl. He won't be running anywhere. Dave, Lisa replied, if you do it right, he may even grow to like being a girl. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Dave said sarcastically. My son, the girl. How does my son, the convict, sound, Dave? Lisa asked. I'd rather have a daughter at home than a son in prison. Think about it, Dave. Allison pleaded. If we really love him, we've got to rein him in now. Dave stared out the window for several minutes, lost in his thoughts. Finally, he shook his head and took his wife's hand. He looked at Lisa for a moment, then turned his attention back to Allison. Looks like we've got a lot of shopping to do, he said. Consider the outfit he's wearing a gift to get my niece started in her new life. Lisa said, It'll come in handy should she forget her manners. As Josh waited with his cousins, his parents left to pick up a few things he needed to get started as Ashley. Lisa had told them that at first he should be kept in dresses to immediately establish control over him. Later on, he could be allowed to wear slacks and tops as a reward for behaving. His boy's clothing should be saved for school and when he absolutely had to dress as a boy, otherwise he should be required to dress and act like a girl. Allison seemed to have no trouble getting used to the idea of Josh wearing girls' clothing. Soon she was happily selecting outfits she felt he'd look cute in. Dave still had some lingering doubts, but he soon set them aside in hopes of helping Josh become more responsible. Soon, they had clothes for every occasion selected. Josh's cotton briefs would be replaced by nylon panties in pastel colors and floral patterns. All of his new underwear would be decorated with cute little bows or lace trim to reinforce the feeling of being a girl whenever he put them on. No effort would be spared to turn Josh into a girl, temporarily, of course. When his parents announced that it was time to leave, Josh was relieved, thinking he'd finally be able to take off the ridiculous outfit he'd worn all afternoon. As he went to the bedroom to change, however, he was shocked to see that instead of his pants and shirt, a jumper, top, girls' socks, and sneakers were waiting for him. Mom, Josh wailed, you said that we were going home now. We are, Allison replied calmly. That's why you have to get changed. Unless, of course, you'd rather wear that outfit home. It does look so nice on you. I want to wear my boys' clothes home. Josh shouted, I don't want to look like my sissy cousins. Your cousins are not sissies, Dave asserted. They're very sweet young ladies, and that's what you're going to be. No way, Josh blurted out as his mother helped him out of his dress and petticoat. No one's going to make a girl out of me. Josh hadn't noticed his dad removing his belt until he felt it across his butt. You're going to learn to keep your mouth shut and behave, or you'll spend the rest of your life in dresses, Dave ordered. Now get dressed. Quite reluctantly, Josh took the pretty white slip from his mother, pulled it over his head, then put his arms through the sleeves of a yellow top with fake white buttons. He finally got it in, allowed his mother to slip the jumper over his head and pull it into place around his hips. After satisfying herself that Josh's slip wouldn't peek out from the bottom of his jumper, his mother had him remove his stockings and put on a pair of white knee socks, before she zipped up the back of the jumper and helped Josh fasten the straps on a pair of girls' tennis shoes. I think socks and sneakers look better than nylons with this outfit, don't you, Ashley? Josh stood there silently. It was a small consolation that this outfit wasn't nearly as frilly as the outfit he'd been wearing, but it was still a dress, with a girl's blouse, socks, underwear, and shoes that he had on. His mother fussed with his hair for a few minutes until she decided that all was in order. There, that's not so bad, is it? She asked. You look so cute in that outfit, not at all like a boy. Do you have to remind me? Josh wailed. I don't want to look like a girl. You don't have a choice anymore, Ashley. His father replied, You're not only going to look like a girl, your mom and I are going to make you behave like one too. That should take the wind out of your sails. I won't do it. Josh screamed, reaching for the zipper to take off his dress. I'm not a girl and you can't make me dress or act like one. We most certainly can, laughed his mother. Remember, I have pictures of you in your pretty dress. I don't think you'd like me to show them to anyone, would you? You wouldn't dare, Josh gasped. I'd never live it down if anyone saw me dressed like that. That's just the point, Ashley, his dad responded. If you don't want anyone to know that you're Josh, an 11-year-old boy in girls' clothes, you're going to have to make them believe that you really are an 11-year-old girl named Ashley. But I can't do that, Dad, cried Josh. Everyone will be able to tell that I'm really a boy. Dave held Josh tight and brushed his hands through Josh's wavy hair. Trust us, Ashley. If you do what we say, no one will know, and this will all be a memory for you. There is no other way out for you. You're going to have to be a girl for a little while until you learn to behave as a boy. Don't worry, baby, consoled Allison. It's not going to be that bad. You're going to be a very pretty girl. Please, Mom, don't do this to me, Josh sobbed. I don't want to be a pretty girl. Please let me be a boy. You can be a boy all day in school, Allison replied. But when you're at home, we'll expect you to dress and act like a young lady, or I start showing off those pictures. Josh sobbed all the way home as his parents talked of the changes that were about to occur. Josh's room would be redone to look more like his cousin's bedroom. His boys' clothes would be put away to be used only for school. He'd learn how to sit, stand, and act like a good little girl should, and soon he'd be the perfect little boy, or possibly girl. Allison somehow forgot to mention to Dave the conversations she and her sister had before they went for their last visit. They had discussed the idea of dressing the boys up as girls in great detail, and had long before agreed that it would certainly help teach the boys to behave, and if for some reasons the boys grew to enjoy looking like girls, then just would be an added bonus. Their mothers would then have the daughters they'd always hoped for. Part 2. She was sure that Dave would object to what they had planned if they had come right out and suggested making the boys wear girls' clothing, so they had planned the whole thing to start with Lisa's sons. Once he saw the difference in them, she was sure he'd go along with the idea and Josh would end up in dresses too. She hadn't expected the wholehearted support he'd given her though, even to the point of renaming Josh to Ashley. It was going to be a fun time converting their rowdy son into a sweet little girl, and she'd have her husband's unwitting help. Josh knew that they had no neighbors near enough to see them as they pulled into their driveway, but he couldn't relax until they had pulled completely into the garage and he was able to dash into the house. His parents were still talking about what still had to be done to help make Josh into Ashley when his mother spotted him sprawled out on the couch, his dress riding up on his thighs. "Sit up and pull down your dress, Ashley," she ordered. "That's no way to sit when you're wearing a dress. No one's going to see me, so what difference does it make?" Josh replied defiantly. "Just because I have to wear these clothes doesn't mean I have to act any different." "You're completely wrong, Ashley." His father replied, "Your mom and I expect you to act like any other girl your age would when you're dressed. It could be very embarrassing for you otherwise." "What do you mean by that?" Josh asked, becoming alarmed. "He means that we'll be going out to dinner or a movie or visiting just like we did before, and if you don't want people to laugh at you, then you'll have to act like a girl. You can't make me go out like this," Josh sobbed. "I'm not going to do it no matter how many times you beat me. I promise not to beat you anymore, Ashley," his dad said with a smile. "That won't be necessary as long as we can show everyone the pretty outfit you begged us to let you wear. I'll bet your friends will think you look so pretty in that dress that they'll ask their parents to dress them up too, right?" his mother asked. Josh knew they had him beat. If his friends ever saw those pictures, he'd never escape the teasing and name-calling he knew would follow. "Okay, what do I have to do?" he asked sadly. "You just have to pay attention and do as I say. That's all." His mother replied softly, "You might even think it's fun after a while. I'll never think being a sissy is fun." Josh said bitterly, "Never in a million years." "You're not a sissy, Ashley," his dad stated firmly. "You're going to be a girl for a little while, that's all." "That's all," Josh cried. "You make it seem like I'm getting a haircut, but it'll grow back if I don't like it." "No haircuts for you in the near future, young lady," Allison laughed. "And whether or not you will be our daughter until you can be trusted to be a boy again." "And when will that be?" Josh prodded. "A couple of weeks. Don't worry about that," his dad replied firmly. "We'll be the ones to decide when you're ready to be a boy again." Josh wanted to run to his room and lock himself in, but that would have been acting like a sissy. Of course, if he did as he was told, he'd end up going out in public as a girl. He began to see that his parents had him in a trap. He'd still have to dress like a girl no matter what, but they were offering him a chance to get out of the house by becoming a girl. He wouldn't really be a girl, he told himself. Yes, he'd look just like a girl and he'd act just like a girl, but he'd still really be a boy, and maybe if he went along with his parents, he'd be able to quickly get out of this mess. "Now fix your dress," Allison told him. Josh got up from the couch, pulled his jumper down to his knees, then smoothed it out as he sat back down again. "Was that good enough?" he asked. "Or should I have curtsied again?" "That will do for now," Allison answered calmly, refusing to get into an argument. "But don't forget to sit with your legs together so no one can see up your dress." "All right," Josh said sadly. "You win. I'll be careful. We'll start your lessons in a little while, Ashley," his mother said. "You can watch TV until then." Josh carefully stretched out on the couch, making certain that his dress stayed down as his mother had instructed. He wondered just what she had in mind for his lessons, but was too afraid to really try to think about it. He was watching his favorite program when his parents returned. "Time to get started, Ashley," his dad announced. "Mom tells me you've got quite a lot to learn about being a girl." "First things first, honey," his mother said excitedly. "Let's go to your room, and I'll teach you all about the new clothes you'll be wearing." Josh couldn't believe how long it seemed to take to walk to his room. His mother had her arm around him and was chattering away about all the pretty new outfits he had and how delightful he was going to look in them. If that wasn't bad enough, she then started saying how much fun they'd have shopping for clothes. Josh nodded his head from time to time just to appear interested, but his mother's enthusiasm soon began to get to him, and he began thinking about the things she had planned for him. Would she really make him go out in public, wearing a dress? Would she make him dress like a girl at home? And how could he get out of this mess? "Quit daydreaming and pay attention, Ashley," his dad said, interrupting his thoughts. "You're going to need to know everything your mom's telling you." "Sorry, Dad," Josh said meekly. Turning to his mother, he asked, "What were you saying, Mom?" Allison smiled at Josh and continued to tell him all about his new clothes, what they were, when to wear, how to wear them, and everything else. A girl his age should know. "All of your underwear and nightgowns will be in these drawers," she explained while opening drawers. "Your panties and bras will be in the top drawer. Slips, pantyhose, and socks in this one. Your dresses, skirts, and dressy blouses will be in your closet, but every day, casual kind of tops and slacks are in the bottom drawer." "Slacks?" Josh asked hopefully. "You mean I don't have to wear dresses all the time?" "No, Ashley." His mother said she gave him a kiss. "If you behave, you'll be allowed to wear slacks now and then. At first, though, you'll wear dresses and skirts until Dad and I are convinced you've changed. I'll be good, I promise." Josh exclaimed. "Just let me wear pants, please." "Don't get all worked up, honey," his dad said. "You'll get your chance to prove it. Now, I'm sure you know what to do with your panties, so let's talk about bra," his mother said, holding up a pink one. "It's easier to put them on with the hooks in front first. Then turn it around and put your arms through it. Same thing for taking them off. You should wear one unless you're wearing a nightgown or PJs. They're a little uncomfortable at first, but you'll get used to them. All girls do." "What about these?" Josh asked, holding up a half slip. What do I do with this?" "That's a half slip," Honey Allison stated, happy that Josh was showing interest. Slips are worn under dresses and skirts to make them hang smoothly, and especially when you're wearing a sheer dress, so it's not see-through. "Then what do I have on under this dress?" Josh asked, confused. "You're wearing a full slip since it goes all of the way up, and you had on a special slip called a petticoat earlier." "That's a real fancy slip for special occasions." Josh nodded, trying to understand all his mother was saying as she explained in detail each piece of his new clothing. Even staring at the assortment of colors and fabrics in front of him, he still couldn't believe his parents really expected him to wear those things. He tried to keep his mind off the feeling of the slip as it brushed against his legs, or the lightweight panties he wore before his parents noticed and thought he enjoyed wearing girls' clothes. It took some time, but his mother finally finished telling him everything she thought he'd need to know and left him on his own until dinner. Once he was sure that he was alone, Josh went to his dresser and began to examine his new clothes in more detail. Taking a slip from his drawer, he looked at the fancy lace trimming at the bottom and the top, wondering why girls liked all of this frilly stuff. It wasn't necessary for anything that he could see, and no one would ever see it, so why bother? Same thing for the panties, he thought, who needed colors that no one would see. He'd worn white underwear all of his life, and it was just right. He'd always wondered what some of the prettier girls in his class wore under their dresses. He just never thought that this would be the way he'd find out. He'd find a way out of this. He was sure of that. And when he did, his parents would regret ever thinking about making him wear girls' clothes. After dinner, he had to help his mom clear away the dinner dishes, while his dad sat watching television. His dad offered to help, but Josh's mother said it wasn't necessary since she had her daughter to help. Bad enough, I have to dress like a stupid girl, Josh thought. They don't have to rub it in. After all of the dishes were done and the kitchen cleaned, Josh was allowed to join his dad and watch television for the rest of the evening. Noticing his father stare, Josh carefully smoothed his skirt beneath him as he sat down. "Now what's wrong?" asked Josh agitatedly. "I sat down right, didn't I?" "Your legs, Josh," called his mother from the kitchen. "Are they together the way they should be?" Josh brought his knees together with a loud sigh. "Sorry, Dad," he asked. "Am I being enough of a lady now?" "Keep acting like that, Josh, and you might just end up as a lady. Right, Dad? Whatever." Absorbed in the television show, Josh never noticed his mother entering the room until she took a seat on the couch next to him and deposited an armload of combs, brushes, and curlers on the coffee table in front of where they sat. "Now what are you planning?" he asked suspiciously. "I hope those things aren't for me." "Time to do your hair," Ashley, his mother, announced cheerfully. "You know I always said your pretty hair was wasted on a boy." "Not my hair, Mom," Josh cried. "Please, this outfit is bad enough. Quiet down, Ashley. I want you to look nice for church in the morning." "Church? I'm not going anywhere like this. Don't worry, we're going to Grandma's church. You'll be fine." "But she'll see me," Josh contended. "She'll think I'm a sissy or something." "She'll think you're a lovely young lady. If you'd let me fix your hair," his mother replied. "Now please sit still, Dad." "You heard your mother, Ashley. Sit still," commanded his dad. Resigned to his fate, Josh sat perfectly still while his mother combed, brushed, and rolled his long hair onto curlers. "You'll have to be careful removing your jumper and putting your nightgown on tonight, dear," his mother instructed. "You don't want your curlers to get snagged on anything. Heaven forbid that should happen." It took nearly an hour, but Josh's head was covered with an assortment of pink curlers held tightly against his scalp with bobby pins. His mother was bubbling over with glee. "I can't wait to see how pretty you look when I brush this out in the morning. You're going to look so darling. I'm going to be so embarrassed if anyone sees me." Josh whimpered as he felt the curlers on his head. You didn't have to do this. I would have behaved. We've heard that promise before, Ashley, but you never kept it. This worked for your cousins, and it's going to work for you. They're sissies. Josh spat out the words. Sissies, 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 and I'll never be like them. They're well-behaved young ladies now, but soon they'll be well-behaved young men, his dad answered angrily. You'll stay a girl until you can be as nice as they are. Never, Josh shot back. I'll never be a sissy. That's up to you, Ashley, his mother answered, emphasizing his name. I certainly don't mind having a daughter, do you, dear? She asked, turning to her husband. Not at all, he said with a smile. I think she looks so much nicer this way, as a matter of fact. Josh burned with anger and embarrassment, but wasn't about to push his parents any further, afraid of what else his mother might decide to do to make him look nice for church the next day. Instead, he opted to sit quietly and watch the end of the movie, hoping he'd be able to forget the taut feeling of his hair in curlers and the silky feeling of his slip as it brushed against his bare legs. Watching the movie, however, proved to be tough, especially when he occasionally caught his father glancing at him with a smile on his face. Why do you keep staring at me like that? Don't you think that I feel stupid enough already without you staring at me and smiling? Sorry, I'm not trying to upset you, Ashley. It's just that your mom's right. You really are cute. Thanks for the compliment, Dad. It's just the thing every boy my age wants to hear from his dad. You're going to be dressed like this for a while, Ashley. At least you look enough like a girl to get away with it. I don't care how cute you think I look. I'm never going to go along with this. Never, screamed Josh as he stormed towards his room. As he entered his room, he suddenly stopped and stared in disbelief at the changes that had been made. After doing his hair, his mother had quietly slipped away and changed the sheets and curtains in his bedroom. Earlier that evening, when he'd last left his room, he had blue sheets and pillowcases, a dark blue blanket and spread, along with wheat-colored curtains on the windows. Now, to his consternation, he had pink sheets, pillowcases, a rose-colored blanket, and comforter on the bed, and ruffled pink and white gingham-style curtains. His baseball posters had been taken down, and his model car collection was also gone. If that wasn't bad enough, his mom had set out a pair of girls' pajamas for him to wear, which rivaled his Southern-style dress of that afternoon for sheer girlishness. Sheer was the word that popped into Josh's head as soon as he looked at the pajamas he was expected to wear. The top was pink with sheer sleeves and a sheer layer over a silky fabric that would just cover his chest and shoulders. The bottoms had what seemed like a pair of silky panties covered by the same sheer fabric that made up the legs. Pretty sexy, aren't they? His mother giggled from the doorway. I knew you'd look great in them as soon as I saw them. You're kidding, right? Was I kidding about the dress this afternoon? I hope to wake up soon, and this will all be a bad dream. Maybe in a couple of months if you're real good, but by then you might want to keep your new pajamas. Like I told Dad, never. Josh said angrily as he reached for the zipper on his jumper. Let me help you with that, sweetheart, his mom said as she unzipped him. I don't want you to mess up your curlers. His mother helped him out of the jumper, then showed him how to carefully remove his top and slip to prevent them from being caught in his curlers before she undid his bra for him. Her face lit up in a bright smile when he finished putting on his pajamas. You're so darling, she gushed as she hugged him tight. I just know this is going to work out. Come with me. I want your father to see how precious his daughter is. Once again, Josh found himself modeling a girl's outfit for his parents while they oohed and ahed over how pretty he looked. They seemed to have completely forgotten that he was really a boy, and his dad even hugged him and gave him a kiss on the forehead before sending him off to bed. It was a tough night for Josh as he tried to sleep with a head full of curlers. He was certain that he'd just dozed off when his mother came in to wake him. Why does she have to be so cheerful about this whole thing? He wondered. She's going to fix me all up like a girl, and she thinks it's just great. Did you have a good night, sweetie? His mother asked cheerfully. How could I have a good night with these in my hair? He asked, gesturing towards the curlers. It's just a sacrifice that we girls make to look pretty. You'll get used to them soon enough. Used to them? Josh was horror-stricken. You mean I'll have to wear them again? Certainly, unless you want to get a perm, that is. No thanks anyway. I guess I'll get used to curlers. Enough chit-chat, sleepyhead. We have to get you dressed and take out your curlers before church. Now hurry. Brush your teeth and wash your face. I'll get your clothes ready. When he returned from the bathroom, Josh wanted to cry, for there on his bed lay a pair of panties, a bra, full slip, stockings, and a dark blue dress decorated with pink flowers and lace. How could his parents possibly expect him to leave the house dressed like that? Once his curlers were completely out, his mother told him to dress, and then she'd style his hair for him. Although he couldn't wait to get of the flimsy pajamas he was wearing, he wanted no parts of the dress and underwear his mother had selected for him. Noting his hesitation, his mother stepped forward to help him out of his top. I can handle it, he insisted as he took off his top and put on the front fastening bra. Just wanted to help, honey, his mother said, all too sweetly for Josh's liking. Do you have to talk like that? What's wrong with the way I talk? You're talking to me as if I was a girl, Josh retorted. Turn around, was his mother's reply. As he turned, Josh realized that his closet door was open and that a full-length mirror had been installed on it. Reflected in the mirror was a young girl with a head full of curls, wearing a bra and girls' pajama bottoms. See, there's nothing wrong with the way I'm talking to you. Now hurry and get ready. I'll fix your hair when you're all dressed. Once his mother was gone, Josh pulled off his PJ bottoms and carefully put on the pantyhose his mom had set out for him before putting on the slip and dress. He tried to reach the back zipper of the dress, but no amount of twisting or squirming would allow him to pull it to the top. I'm going to need some help, Mom, he sighed. It was bad enough to have to wear these clothes, but needing his mother's help made it worse. After all, she took way too much pleasure in helping to dress him like a girl. Trouble with your zipper? His mom asked as she breezed into the room. Let me show you a little trick. Just unzip it far enough to get over your head, then you can zip it yourself. As she teased and brushed out his curls, his mother patiently explained everything she was doing, how it would add volume to his hair, and how it would lay in gentle waves instead of tight curls. Let me know if you'd rather have it curly, honey, and I won't brush it out so much, okay? Do whatever you want, Mom. It's not going to make much difference with me in this dress. Fine, then wavy it is. Don't worry about it, Ashley. You're going to be a knockout when we're done. What, no makeup? Josh asked facetiously. I wasn't going to bother since you're only 11, but maybe you're right. A little blush and just a touch of lipstick couldn't hurt. I've got a big mouth, Josh groaned. Big enough to shove both feet into. Stay put, Ashley. I'll be right back with some makeup you can use. Moments later, his mother was back carrying some of her old makeup, which she put on his dresser. You're a lucky girl, Ashley. My mother didn't let me wear makeup until I was 14. Back then, nice girls your age just didn't wear makeup. How about nice boys? I'm not going to argue with you, young lady, his mother replied sternly. Until you go back to school tomorrow morning. You're my daughter and you'd better get used to pretty clothes and behave, or else you'll be going to school in a dress. Realizing that he had pushed far enough, Josh sat silently as his mother accented his cheeks with a light pink blush, deftly outlined his lips with a lipstick pencil, then filled them in with a shade that was slightly darker than his natural lip color. I have a little something else for you too, his mother said, her eyes sparkling as she opened a small jewelry case containing a gold necklace and earrings. No way, Mom, Josh said adamantly. I'm not wearing any of that stuff, and that's that. Josh might as well have been talking to the mirror, for even as he shouted his protests, his mother was snapping shut the clasp on his new necklace and clipping earrings to his ears. "You look so pretty this way," his mother said softly. "I can't wait until your grandmother sees you. I just know she'll be thrilled." Josh reached up to remove the necklace, but his mother caught his hand and quickly returned it to the vanity. "I have just the thing for those nails of yours," she said as she opened a package of fake nails. "I'll get some yogurt and gelatin to help them grow, but these will do until then." It was over in a matter of minutes with no further resistance from Josh. Pink, perfectly shaped nails extended just past his fingertips, the taste of lipstick matched only by the scent of the blush he wore on his cheeks. If he tried hard, really hard, he could forget the makeup. If he didn't look at them, he could ignore his fingernails. He could even put the earrings and necklace out of his mind. If he did all of that, though he found himself noticing the silky feel of his stockings as he brushed his legs together and the horrible smooth feeling of his slip as it rubbed against his nylon-covered butt. It just didn't make sense. He thought to himself, "Mom's turning me into a sissy, but it feels so good. Just relax, honey," his mother said soothingly, as if she read his thoughts. "You're a pretty girl, and I'll bet you'll enjoy the way people are going to treat you." Arriving at the church, Josh's parents walked purposefully towards a particular pew, then waved him in first. His apprehension over having to sit next to his grandmother was relieved when he glanced past her and noticed his aunt and cousins sitting on her other side. Todd wore a pink jumper over a white blouse, while Tim and Todd wore matching white cotton dresses with delicate flowers and a lace-trimmed collars. Todd's dress had blue flowers, while Tim's had pink ones. Both wore tan stockings, white sandals, had obviously had their hair done, and just a trace of pink lipstick. They smiled and waved to Josh in a rather girlish manner while his grandmother patted him on the leg and told him how pretty he looked. Josh glanced around, hoping no one was noticing how he and his cousins were dressed. To his amazement, no one in the church seemed to be paying any attention to them. No one, unless you counted the boy who smiled as he and Josh made eye contact. After the service ended, the family gathered off to one side where his grandmother began fussing over how pretty her nieces were and how happy she was over their behavior in church. Josh wanted to rebel as his grandmother remarked on his makeup and pretty hair, but he found that he couldn't. Neither Josh nor his cousins had ever been overly close to their grandmother. Actually, she made no secret of how she loathed their behavior and looked forward to the end of their infrequent visits. Now, no matter how silly he felt to be dressed as he was somehow, it felt nice to see the smile on his grandmother's face and to hear her say how happy she was to see him. "Hello, Julia," a voice called out from behind the happy little group. "So nice to see you again." Josh's happy mood turned sour as his grandmother's closest friend approached them. The lady knew Josh's mother and aunt since they were little girls and was well acquainted with Josh and his cousins. "Alice and Lisa, I haven't seen you two in ages," she exclaimed, hugging them tight. "How are you and your families?" Her cheerful expression over seeing them turned to bewilderment as she glanced from Josh's family to the girls with them. "Who are these lovely young ladies, Julia?" she asked. "I thought you had 3 grandsons." "I did," his grandmother replied proudly, "but now I have 3 lovely, well-behaved granddaughters." "Oh my," her friend exclaimed, looking at the boys. "Well, you certainly fooled me," she chuckled. "So these are the 3 hellraisers you talked about?" "Not anymore," laughed Josh's aunt. "We seem to have found a way to tame them down." "I should say so." The woman chuckled. "They look so sweet in those outfits." "Why not come over to my place for lunch, Darla?" Josh's grandmother asked. "We can catch up on old times and get to know the girls here better." "Mom," Josh wailed. "Calm down. It's okay." Darla whispered, "I think you girls are adorable and I promise to keep your secret. I'll even tell you one of my own over lunch." This is going to be so wonderful, gushed Josh's grandmother as she hugged his cousins. We're going to have so much fun. Later, at his grandmother's home, Josh and his cousins sat silently as their grandmother's friend explained how her mother had once imposed the same punishment on her older brother. He was such a handful. She laughed. Always in some sort of trouble, fighting, staying out late, being disobedient. How did he like having to wear dresses and stuff? Time asked. Once he got used to skirts and petticoats, though he settled down and was a perfect young woman. Darla replied with a smile. Just as I'm sure you girls will do. No way, Josh shot back. I'll never like being a sissy. I never knew you had a brother, Darla. Josh's grandmother replied, ignoring his outburst. Whatever became of him, he became a teacher and retired a few years back. A smile came to her face. You've met him many times, Julia. Don't you remember my sister Paulette? Oh my heavens, Julia exclaimed in shock. You mean to tell me that that beautiful lady that all the men got crazy over is my big brother Paul? Darla said with a laugh. He got my mother so mad that she even sent him to school as Paulette. I told you once he got used to skirts and petticoats. He was the perfect young woman. I remember her, Allison exclaimed gleefully. And you're right, Mom. She's a beautiful lady. Of course, things were different back then, continued Darla. You didn't have all the paperwork you have today. Mom took him to school, wrote his name down as Paulette, and that was that. He's been Paulette ever since. That's amazing. Lisa said in awe. One day he's a boy, and the next he's a girl. Josh noted with horror the look his mother was giving him. No way, Mom, he said sarcastically. You can't send me to school as a girl. My birth certificate says male, remember? So did my brother's until our mother erased it and wrote female. Laughed Darla. Why don't you girls go watch TV or something? Allison said, the adults want to talk alone. Sure, Mom, Tim said happily as he rose and smoothed out his dress. Come on, Ashley. Jenny, let's see what's on TV. Josh sighed and rose to follow his cousins. Glancing back, he noticed the raised eyebrows on his mother's face and gently smoothed out his skirt. Now was definitely not the time to have a showdown with his mother. He wasn't thrilled with the idea of being Ashley for life. Once the boys were out of the room, the subject quickly returned to their punishment and Darla's brother. Darla was thrilled with the idea of treating the boys as girls. It had worked out so well for her brother that she was sure it was the best thing to do. Dave was shocked that any normal boy could really want to do what Darla's brother had done, but the women were adamant. I think it's so much nicer being a woman than a man, Dave, Allison said. My clothes are nicer than yours. I can go to the beauty shop and be pampered if I like, and I don't feel the same silly pressure to be number one at everything like guys do. Men aren't as free to express their emotions like women are, Lisa added. They have to keep things bottled up inside until the stress kills them. If I'm upset, I can have a good cry and feel better. All I can say is that Paulette never once regretted being a girl, Darla said. He often thanked Mom for making a girl out of him. But what did other people think? Dave asked. My mother once told me that it wasn't that unusual for boys to be brought up as girls back then, especially back in the old country where she came from. It must have been true since none of our neighbors ever said a word about it. I can't believe the number of times I met your sister and never realized she was a man, laughed Julia. Including the time she was my maid of honor. Darla replied, That's right, she was your maid of honor. I thought it was so sweet of you to choose your sister. She was a perfect choice, and she even helped me choose my gown and the gowns for the rest of the girls. Didn't your husband mind? Dave asked. I mean, didn't he think it was odd to have your brother pretending to be a woman at his wedding? He never knew I had a brother, Darla replied. By the time we got married, Paulette had been living as a girl for almost 15 years. As far as anyone was concerned, she was my sister. I doubt that will ever happen to our boys, Dave exclaimed. They hate being dressed as girls. Wait and see, Darla replied, smiling at the other women. Just wait and see. Part 3. In the living room, the boys were retelling the horrors of going to church and meeting their grandmother as girls. I didn't think that I'd ever get to sleep last night, Todd said. I kept worrying about what Grandma would think about us wearing girls' clothes. I know what you mean, Tim added. I kept thinking that she might laugh at us or something. Didn't you guys worry about what other people would think of seeing 3 boys wearing dresses? Josh asked. I mean, there were a lot of other people there besides Grandma. Tim and Todd exchanged knowing smiles. Well, we were kind of worried that you might give it all away, Todd grinned. Yeah, but when we saw how you looked, we knew it'd be okay, finished Tim. Me? Exclaimed a bewildered Josh. Didn't it occur to you guys that someone might notice one of you? After all, those aren't exactly jeans and sneakers that you two are wearing. I guess it didn't, Josh, Todd replied calmly. But that's probably because we've been there a couple of times before, right? We're kind of used to it, I guess. Said kind of used to going to church in a dress. Oh, sure. The first time was kind of scary, but it's not too bad anymore. Right, Todd? Yeah, I remember how I was too scared to get out of the car the first time. Todd laughed. But Mom went through a lot of trouble to make us look nice, and she promised us ice cream later if we were good. I can't believe you two. Can't you see that our moms are trying to turn us into girls? I don't think they want to do that, Tim said, shaking his head. They just want us to behave, that's all. As soon as we behave, we can wear boy stuff again, Todd chimed in. Didn't you hear? They were talking to Grandma's friend aboard her brother. They thought it was great that her brother dresses like a lady all the time. That's what they want us to do too, a worried Josh explained. You never know, Ashley. It might be fun to make people think you're really a girl, said Todd with a hint of enthusiasm to his voice. Don't call me Ashley, Josh said in a huff. I'm not a girl, and I hate dressing like one. It's not that bad, really, Tim replied. We've had a lot of fun now that we're kind of used to it, right, Todd? What are you two talking about? Josh asked suspiciously. What kind of fun have you been having? Todd looked over at Tim and smiled. We get to stay up later on weekends if we're good. Mom buys all kinds of treats for us and rents great movies too. So for a couple of extra minutes at night, some treats and movies, you're letting her turn you into sissies. Smirked Josh. We're not sissies. Tim insisted. We're just learning to behave a little nicer. That's all. You're sissies, Josh taunted. I can't believe you let your mom turn you into a couple of girls. Yours did the same to you too, Tim said, barely able to control his tears. You're dressed up just like we are, don't forget. Yeah, just wait and see. I'll be back in boys' clothes before you sissies are. Todd couldn't take Josh's teasing any longer. We don't care, do we, Tim? We like getting all dressed up. Tim's face was suddenly covered with a look of horror. Shut up, Todd, he hissed. I knew it, Josh shouted triumphantly. I knew you two were a couple of fairies. Todd broke into tears and rushed to his room. Hearing the commotion, the adults rushed to see what was wrong. Todd told Josh that we like wearing girls' clothes, Mom. Tim tearfully explained. Josh called us fairies and made Todd cry. Tim's mother hugged him tight, trying to ease his pain. That wasn't very nice of you, Ashley. I'm not Ashley, and I never will be, Josh said defiantly. Nothing you can do will ever make me into a fairy like Todd and Tim. You're going to pay for this, young lady, warned Josh's mother. When I'm done with you, you'll beg your cousins to forgive you. Josh shot one last smirk at Tim as his parents led him out to the car. You're still a fairy, he called back. Life for Josh continued as it had for several weeks. At school, he wore his regular boy's clothes, while at home, it was strictly Ashley. His attitude hadn't changed. Notes from school were a routine occurrence. After a second warning for fighting his parents, decided to take more drastic measures to curb his aggressive behavior on the playground. It was a warm, sunny Monday morning when Josh's mother woke him for school. He took his usual shower, brushed his teeth, and reached for the clothes his mother had set out for him. To his astonishment, there on the bed, along with his shorts, shirt, and socks, lay a pair of panties. "I can't wear these to school," Josh protested. "The guys would kill me if they saw me wearing girls' underwear." "That's right, so you better be careful," his mother called from outside of his room. "That means no resting or fighting. Now get dressed before I make you wear something else." Josh examined the panties for several seconds before pulling them on. At least they were white, he thought to himself. He couldn't imagine wearing some of his other panties, like the pink or yellow ones, or the ones with lace at the top. Josh's mom was right about how he'd behave at school while wearing panties. Even his teachers were amazed at the sudden change in his behavior. Weeks went by without any further problems, and Josh's parents were sure they'd finally made him behave when the call came. The call was from the principal of Josh's school, and it was a request for both parents to come to the school immediately. At the school, they were met by the principal and a police officer who had been called out because of a fire alarm which Josh had set off. This time there was to be no second chance. Josh had too many of them in the past. This time he was to be expelled. Josh sat dumbfounded as he listened to his sentence. He had no idea that what he thought to be a harmless prank could cause so much trouble. The officer was telling his parents that Josh's little prank was going to cost them a $300 fine, and the principal informed them that they had 1 month to find another school for Josh or face even larger fines for truancy. As he glanced at his parents, Josh could clearly see that he was in major trouble. If he knew what his punishment was to be, he would have cried and begged the principal to take him back. Not a word was said as the family drove home from school, which worried Josh. His parents had never before hesitated to chew him out. Why weren't they doing it this time? "Go to your room and change, young lady," his father said as they entered the house. "I expect to see you downstairs in 10 minutes wearing that yellow outfit." The expression on his dad's face told him not to argue, so Josh trudged off to change. 10 minutes later, he stood in front of his parents, dressed as he was told. "I don't know where we're going to find a school that's willing to accept you," his dad said. "If I could send you off to the army, I'd do it in an instant. Maybe they could find a way to put an end to your wild streak. That's what he needs," his mother affirmed. "Some place where they'll keep an eye on him and make him behave. I doubt that I could wear this dress in the army." Before he could finish, Josh's dad slapped him hard across the face. "Go ahead, make another smart remark, and you'll end up wearing those clothes for the rest of your life." His father shouted, "Maybe you'd like being a pretty girl in frilly dresses. You can't seem to behave as a boy. So maybe you should be a girl. Why don't we have him spend his little vacation as Ashley?" his mother suggested. "He'd appreciate it so much more when he does go back to school." "I think that's a good idea, dear," his dad agreed, turning to face Josh again. "Until we can get you back into school, you'll spend all of your time as a girl. As far as I'm concerned, your name is Ashley, and I'm sure your mom will do everything she can to make you into a pretty girl. First, I think we have to do something with your hair, sweetheart," laughed his mother as she ran her fingers through his thick hair. "What do you think about a perm to give her nice curls?" she asked of Josh's dad. "I think she'd look adorable with a head full of curls. Why not get started now?" "I need a few things first," she replied with a grin. "Ashley, change into that outfit you wore at Grandma's a few weeks back. And don't forget to put the outfit you're wearing away neatly. You'll be wearing it again very soon." "Why do I have to change, Mom?" Josh asked uncertainly. "Well, if you want to wear that dress to go shopping in, It's up to you, of course. I just thought you'd be more comfortable in a simpler outfit. Shopping in a dress. Please, Mom, everyone will laugh at me. Why would anyone laugh at you, Ashley? His mom asked with mock concern. You're just another girl shopping with her mom. No, Mom, please. Josh begged, tears trickling down his face. I'll do anything you want. Just don't make me go out in girls' clothes. I'll make certain that you don't look like a boy, Ashley. You'll have to make certain that you don't act like a boy. If you do everything right, no one will ever know you're not a cute girl. I don't want to be a girl, Mom. Please don't do this. What you want doesn't really matter anymore, Ashley. His father answered, Until we get you back into school, you're going to be spending your days as a girl. Hopefully, that will teach you to behave a lot better than you have. If not, I just might let your mom make a girl out of you permanently. Josh suddenly noticed the faraway look in his mother's eyes. You'd certainly make a beautiful young woman someday. Too bad, laughed Josh. But you're stuck with a son, and you can't change that. Josh's dad started to laugh. Ever hear of hormones? Hormones? Yeah? They mentioned something about them in health class. So what? Let's just say that if you started taking female hormones today in a year or so, you wouldn't need a padded bra. Not to mention the special operations some men have, added his mother. Sure, take away a little here, add a little there, and a man becomes a woman. I've heard that too much male hormones are what makes some boys too rough. Josh's mother added, You know, Dave, maybe that's his problem. You wouldn't dare. Josh cried as he ran to his room. You can't make a girl out of me. I won't let you. Get changed while you're at it, Ashley. His mother called behind him. I'll be right there to fix your hair and makeup. As Josh's bedroom door slammed, his mother turned to his dad. You're not serious about hormones, are you? Josh's dad just shook his head, bewildered. After today, I'm just not sure. He said somberly, I'm really not sure. Josh was just zipping up his dress as his mom entered his room. You're not really going to make me take stuff that will turn me into a girl, are you? That's up to you, Ashley, she replied as she helped him zip up his dress. Your father and I are not going to let you grow up to be a troublemaker and bully. If making a girl out of you will keep that from happening, then that's what we'll do. Josh had nothing more to say. He sat as his mother styled his hair and did his nails. No matter what his parents said, he just didn't believe they'd go that far with him. His father would never allow his son to be turned into a girl. After his mother finished, Josh's hair was fluffed out in gentle curls, with bangs softly framing his forehead. His fingernails now extended out just past the tips of his finger and were coated with a shade of pink to match the flowers in his dress. His nylon-covered legs ended in a pair of low-heeled blue pumps. A gold necklace hung around his neck while blue button earrings were clipped to each ear. Sadly surveying his outfit, he never noticed his mother reaching for a small bottle until he felt a cool mist on his neck. Hey, what are you doing now? He demanded in a huff. What is that stuff? Just a little cologne to make you smell nice. That's all. Don't spray that junk on me. It makes me smell funny. It makes you smell like a girl, replied his mom, brushing away his objections. It'll help remind you that you're a girl. But I don't want to be a girl, Mom. I'm a boy. That's what I want to be. You shouldn't say that, Ashley. Someone might hear you. Besides, it's a little extra touch to make you feel more like a girl. His objections unheeded, Josh was soon dressed and ready to go. He hesitated for a moment at the door to the garage, but the look on his father's face told him that it would be far better to go shopping than to stay at home. His heart was thumping furiously as he buckled his seatbelt, and a smile came to his mother's face as she watched him carefully smooth his dress and pull the hem down to his knees. Josh flashed an embarrassed look back at his mother. He wasn't so much concerned that his dress wouldn't wrinkle, but that it would ride up too high, and he'd catch sight of the lace trim of his slip. Walking through the mall, Josh tried to keep his shoes from making the distinctive clicking noise from his heels. He took short steps, long steps, walked on the front of his feet and the backs of his feet, but nothing would silence that noise. Frustrated, Josh finally gave up trying and dejectedly wandered back to his mother's side. She looked at him and smiled, pleased to see that his resistance was beginning to crack. "There's no way out, Ashley. You're a girl, and that's all there is to it." His mother's words were upsetting to Josh, but not nearly as upsetting as realizing that after 10 minutes of walking through the mall, not one person had given him a second look. His mother had done such a good job with his outfit and hair that no one questioned that he was a girl. It was too spooky, Josh thought to himself, just like that day at church when a boy smiled at him. Guiding him gently by the elbow, his mother steered him into a beauty supply store. "Let's stop in here first. I think they'll have what I'm looking for." As his mother came to a stop in front of a shelf filled with hair dyes, Josh hissed, "That is for you, isn't it?" Placing a container of blonde hair dye into her cart, his mother shook her head. "You decide if blondes have more fun. If you dye my hair, I'll be stuck with it for a long time." Josh whispered furtively, "I'll look ridiculous." "Don't get all worked up." His mom pointed to the shelf. "These are just rinses. The color will wash out in a couple of days. You'll be a doll. Now calm down and help me find the permanent kits." "A permanent too." Josh groaned. "How will I be able to go back to school with my hair curled? How will I be able to go back to school?" "Oh, don't worry about it. We can get some relaxer later. Right now, I want my daughter to look her prettiest." Soon, Josh was watching his mother check out with hair dye, curlers, and a permanent kit, all meant to make him look pretty. For the first time since he'd pulled it, he began to wish that he'd never gone near that box. His stomach was churning furiously as he thought about having curly blonde hair. What if he put up a fight and refused to let his mother do his hair? He wondered. He suddenly remembered the tight feeling of the bra he was wearing, and his parents' comments about hormones came back to haunt him. Would they really try to turn him into a real girl? Part of him said no. Of course they wouldn't, but yet here he was, in girl's clothes, chopping for things to make him look more and more like a girl. He wisely decided not to try to find out if his parents were bluffing, for fear that his bra would become a permanent part of his wardrobe. Holding the bag of hair items, Josh followed his mother into a department store and straight to the junior girls' department filled with trendy clothes for teenage girls. "How about this?" his mother asked, handing him a one-piece shorts and top outfit to look at. The outfit, made of some type of silky material, had small white dots over a burgundy background. A row of small white buttons up the back appeared to be the only way in or out of the outfit. "What do you mean? How about this?" "Must I pull teeth to get an answer out of you? Do you like it?" "Sure, Mom," Josh teased. "Can I have one for each day of the week?" "Two should be plenty," responded his mother. "What other color would you like?" "I was just kidding, Mom. Now can we please go home?" His mother grinned, handed him the outfit, and showed him the dressing area. Josh was horrified to see where she was taking him. He tried to hold back, but his mother warned him not to make a scene. "Just close the door, and no one will know the difference," she told him. "Now hurry up and let me see how you look." Josh suddenly found himself inside the dressing area, standing in front of an open door. He quickly dashed inside, afraid someone might notice him. With the door closed behind him, Josh sat down and caught his breath. He wanted no parts of the outfit his mother had given him. He didn't want to try it on for her, and he most definitely didn't want to wear it. He gathered it up and opened the door to leave. He saw his mother looking at him from just beyond the dressing area, and he could see by the look on her face that she was not happy. "Unless you want me to tell everyone here that you're a boy, you'll go right back in there and change." Josh looked around and realized that more girls had entered the area without his noticing. He looked again at the girls around him, then back at his mother. "Well, Is it going to be Ashley or Joshua? Was all she asked. Ashley, Josh replied sadly. Turning back, he went to the dressing room, removed his dress and slip and stepped into the outfit. Pulling it up to his shoulders, he noticed a strange sensation. The fabric was light and very silky, giving the impression that he wasn't really wearing anything over his bra and panties. He stopped for a second to stare at his reflection in the mirror and was shocked to see just how good of a job his mother had done on him. His hair, although still short for a girl, was done in soft curls that made his face seem soft and pretty, just like some of the prettier girls in his school. His school, he thought sadly. His old school, the one he was no longer welcome in. It was supposed to be a joke, a chance to get out of class for a while, he thought to himself. He got out of class all right, but no one was laughing. Although if any of the girls trying on clothes around him knew he was a boy, the laughing would quickly start. Although his parents had never found out, there were times at school when he had peeked into the girls' shower room to see the girls getting dressed after gym class. Now he was one of those girls, trying on outfits for her mother, and all because of a dumb joke. "Hurry up, Ashley. We haven't got all day," his mother called from the store. "I have a couple of more outfits I want you to try on yet." Josh felt sick at the thought of having to spend an afternoon modeling girls' clothes, and even sicker when he remembered that he might be spending a whole month as a girl if his parents couldn't get him into school before that. Worse still was what might happen if they couldn't find a school willing to take him. It wasn't hard for him to decide that he'd be on his very best behavior at any school. He went to, and he'd be sure his parents had no reason to be mad at him until then. He stepped into the flats he had worn and hurried out to his mother. "You look really good in that outfit, Ashley," complimented his mother. "Do you like the way it fits?" "You know I don't, Mom," Josh whispered. "Please, can't I stop now?" "In a little while, sweetheart. Now let's see how you look in these." His mother handed him several more outfits and directed him back to the dressing rooms again. Without a word of protest, Josh meekly accepted the clothes from his mother and went back to change. Taking off the short set, he stared at his reflection in the mirror before he reached for his slip to wear under a dress his mother had given him to try on. Having been dressing at home for over 2 months now, he knew what to do without having to think. After sliding his slip over his head, he tugged it down until it fell to just above his knees, then unbuttoned the top 2 buttons on the back of the dress to allow his to pull it over his head. As dresses went, even Josh realized it was very pretty, a dark shade of green. The short puffy sleeves had white edging to set them off. A white sewn-in fabric belt went around the waist, and a sheer white collar with delicate pattern accented the neckline. Remembering his lessons from home, he glanced down and found that the dress was several inches shorter than his slip. The straps on his slip were adjusted as much as they could be, so he ended up pulling the slip up and tucking it into the waistband of his pantyhose. "Now that dress is perfect for you," his mother gushed as he walked out of the dressing room. "It's a perfect fit, and that shade of green looks great on you." "I'm glad you like it, Mom," Josh said quietly. "It's kind of short, though. You'll get used to it. It's the style. But my slip was too long. I had to tuck it into my stockings. Don't you like it?" His mother asked tenderly. "Don't you think it's pretty?" "I don't want to have to wear dresses, Mom. But yes, it is a pretty dress." "That settles it then. We'll get you this dress and the shorts. Now hurry and try on the other outfits so we can see what you look best in." After an hour of modeling dresses, skirts, and tops, Josh's mother led him to the shoe department to pick out several more pairs of flats to go with the different outfits she was buying for him. Josh tried to argue that he had a pair of girls' shoes already and didn't really need any more, but his mother brushed it off, saying that a girl needed shoes to match different outfits. They left the mall. Hours later, with Josh carrying several bags containing new dresses, skirts, tops, shoes, and several short half slips for the shorter styles his mother bought for him. Later at home, he carefully unpacked his new clothes, and put them into his closets and drawers. A tear trickled down his cheek as he looked at the girls' underwear, stacked neatly in his drawers, and the closet filled with dresses, skirts, and matching shoes. How much further did his parents plan to go? He wondered, how much further could they go? Preferring not to have to think of it, he quickly changed into an old nightgown of his mother's and hurried down to the kitchen to have his hair colored and permed. "You are going to be beautiful when we're done, Ashley." His mother raved. Pretty blonde hair with lots of loose curls. "I picked up some film for the camera while you girls were shopping," his dad said as he loaded the camera. "I wanted to get some before and after pictures." Josh smiled pleasantly as his dad snapped a few pictures, thankful that at least his dad wasn't taking pictures of him, changed into girls' clothes. At least these pictures were just of his temporarily changing from a brunette to a blonde. "What are you doing now?" Josh asked, horrified that his mother had begun cutting his hair. "You'll see everything when we're done. Now, just sit still while I get you ready," his mother ordered as she continued cutting his hair. Putting the scissors down, she thoroughly soaked Josh's hair in the sink before shampooing it with the dye she bought. Working it into every strand of his hair, she hummed merrily while his dad shot a few more pictures. "Put the camera down for a while, Dave," his mother instructed. "You'll be able to get all the shots you want when she's done and all prettied up." Wrapping a towel around his head, his mother told him to sit still for 20 minutes while the dye set into his hair. "Can I at least have something to read while I'm waiting?" he pleaded, trying not to irritate his parents. "I picked up something for you while I was out." His dad handed him a copy of a magazine for teen girls. "Guess they didn't have popular science." "More girls your age read this than popular science," advised his mother. "You need to know what other girls like." "Why, Mom?" Josh pleaded. "I said I was sorry. I tried on every dress you gave me at the mall. Isn't that enough?" "For being expelled from school. No, not nearly enough," cautioned his dad. "How long do I have to dress like this?" "I don't know, Ashley," his father said softly. "At least until we get you back into school." Tears ran down his cheeks as Josh sobbed. "Please don't make me do this. Please," he cried. "I'll never do anything wrong again. We've heard it all before, dear," his mother said as she held him close. "This time we'll be sure." Josh sat quietly reading his magazine until finally his mother was ready for him again. This time she rinsed his hair thoroughly, adding the perm solution and rolling it tightly onto curlers. "I wasn't sure if your hair would be long enough at first, Ashley. Looks like we got lucky, though. You should be just darling when I take these curlers out." "Darling, just what I always wanted to look like," Josh replied, a girl with pretty blonde hair. "Shush, and we'll be done soon," scolded his mother as she set up a hairdryer to speed things along. "Now you just sit here and relax while I pick an outfit for you." To Josh, it seemed that the clock would never move as he sat reading the magazine, imagining himself a convicted prisoner waiting for execution. After all, hadn't his mother told him that the heat from the dryer would set his hair color and curls? Certainly that doomed him, for when the time under the dryer ended, he would no longer be a boy. After all, he reasoned, no real boy would have curly blonde hair like he would. After his hair was done, Josh went to his room to change and was slightly surprised to see that his mother had selected the red all-in-one short set they'd bought earlier. He had expected the green dress, or at least a dress, but it didn't really matter. There was no mistaking the short set for boys' clothes. Looking at his bed, he saw that his mother had been very thorough. His new red shoes were set out along with white pantyhose, a bra, and red clip-on earrings. Josh knew exactly what was expected of him. So he quickly pulled on the stockings, bra, and shorts outfit, clipped the earrings onto his ears, and slipped on the flats that matched his outfit. He was about to leave the room when he noticed a few locks of hair that had fallen out of place as he dressed. He had just brushing them back into place when he realized what his mother had accomplished. in just over 2 months. She had gotten him to act just like a girl would if she noticed a problem with her hair. If she could do that without his noticing, Josh thought to himself, what would she have him doing now that he was going to be spending even more time as Ashley? Too frightened to consider what was happening to him, Josh quickly left his room to show off his new look to his parents. As he walked into the kitchen, Josh was surprised to see that his aunt, Lisa, had stopped by for a visit. "My God," his aunt gasped. "She's beautiful, Allison, absolutely beautiful." "Have you decided to stick with being a girl, Ashley?" "No, I haven't," Josh quickly replied. "I just have to look like this until I go back to school. Mom says the color will wash out and she'll straighten my hair. Then—" "You can try to straighten her hair, Allie," his aunt said, holding up the empty hair dye box. "But if this is what you used on her, it's not coming out." "What?" Josh cried out in alarm. "Mom, you promised me it would wash out." "Let me see that." His mother snatched the box from her sister's hand. A shocked expression came over her face as she read the label. "Oh no, I'm sorry, Ashley. Aunt Lisa's right. We bought the wrong kind of dye." Josh put his hands up to his head. "You mean I'm stuck like this forever?" "Don't worry, I'll get another dye and change it back when you go to school, I promise." "Try it, and she might just end up bald," advised her sister. "You just can't use different color dyes like that. You'll just have to let it grow out." "How long would that take?" Josh asked in a panicked voice. "A couple of months, give or take a week or two," answered his aunt. "You have to grow an entirely new head of hair. How could you do this to me, Mom?" Josh cried angrily. "I would have behaved. Honest, I would." His mother reached out to console him, but he turned and ran back to his room. Throwing himself on his bed, he lay there sobbing. Josh cried himself to sleep that night, afraid of what was happening to him. His mother repeatedly swore to him that she never meant to change his hair color permanently, and in a few months she'd redo it, but that just caused more problems. How would he explain the overnight change in his hair color a few months from now without being laughed at? No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't think of any way out that wouldn't have other boys think that he was strange. Part 4. Josh tried to keep from thinking about his problem during the day as he cleaned the house for his mother, or in the evening when his mother insisted he learn to sew and do needlepoint. Finally, one Saturday afternoon, his mother told him they'd found a school that would accept him. Josh was delighted to find that there would be all manner of activities available for him, from gymnastics and horseback riding to swimming. The school specialized in handling problem students such as Josh and had a remarkable track record for turning those students around. His parents were quick to point out that the school was an out-of-state boarding school, and Josh would have to spend his first 2 months at the school before he'd be allowed to come home for occasional visits. An appointment had been scheduled for that afternoon for Josh and his parents to visit the school. Josh objected due to his hair, but his parents assured him that the school was shut down for a 2-week holiday and no one would see him. When they arrived at the school, his parents drove directly to an office building where they would meet with Mrs. Farson, the principal. Mrs. Farson was an attractive, well-dressed woman who appeared to be in her mid-40s with a quick smile and outgoing personality. She welcomed Josh and his family into her office, where she explained the school and policies to Josh. There were no harsh penalties for misbehavior. They simply refused to allow students to take advantage of the many privileges available for good students. The longest time any student had survived this penalty was 2 weeks, Mrs. Farson explained. After that, the boy begged forgiveness and became a model student. Josh's parents had agreed to the terms of his being accepted as a student. He was told and would be starting there in a week. He was to use that week to gather up any materials he would need for class and to be fitted for his uniform. "Fitted?" Josh asked, grateful to be leaving his girl's clothes behind at last. "What's so tough about that?" A smile crossed Mrs. Farson's face. "I assume your parents haven't discussed the uniform with you?" Josh's parents had a sheepish look on their faces. We thought it would be best if that were discussed when we came in today. I understand, Mrs. Farson smiled. Many parents have the same problem. Excuse me, I'll be back in a moment, she said as she left the room. Moments later, she returned with a dark blue blazer on a hanger with a white shirt. This is the uniform, Josh. You'll wear it every day to class with few exceptions. Josh saw no problem as he studied the blazer, thinking he might even look pretty sharp in it. His eyes widened in shock, though when Mrs. Farson hung the blazer on a hook, what he first thought was a white shirt was really a girl's blouse, and after that came a dark blue pleated skirt. No way I'm going to wear that, Josh protested. I'm not about to go to school in girls' clothes. This is your new school, Josh, his father asserted. 6 other schools turned you down because of your record. This is just what you need. You can't make me wear girls' clothes. No one can. You said that before too, remember? His dad smiled. The school will solve all of our problems for us. You won't have to worry about what color your hair is or how curly it is, and we won't have to worry about your behavior. An evil smirk came over Josh's face. They have fire alarms here, I'll bet. Yes, Josh, we certainly do, Mrs. Farson replied. But if you pull one as a prank, the police will certainly show up and they're going to ask some embarrassing questions about why you're dressed like a girl. They'll close this place down. Josh shouted defiantly. You can't make boys wear dresses to school. As long as we have the parents' permission, we can. She smiled. We've been doing it for almost 50 years now, and we are state certified. I'll find other ways of causing trouble then. None that haven't been tried before. Was Mrs. Farson's calm reply. Running away. It's 25 miles to town from here, and you're dressed like a girl. Could be dangerous. Anything else and you lose privileges for swimming and other activities. It can get real boring in your room. I don't care, Josh replied stubbornly. You'll give up before I will. I said the same thing when I was your age, Josh. Mrs. Farson smiled. I swore I'd leave this place and never come back. Instead, I stayed on to graduate and returned 15 years ago to teach. Josh's eyes grew wide in disbelief. You're kidding me, he exclaimed. No, Josh, I'm perfectly serious. I'm just as much a male as you are. Married with 2 sons who are also students here. She pointed proudly to a picture of her and 2 young girls in the school's uniforms. My daughters, Jimmy and Robert. My wife and I enrolled them here in 1st grade. 3 years ago. You'll probably meet them later. Just ask for Joanne and Caroline Farson. They'll be happy to show you around. Mrs. Farson pulled out a yearbook from her desk and slid it over to Josh. You won't feel odd here, Ashley, she said soothingly. Take a look in the yearbook and tell me if you see any boys. Josh studied the book intently for several minutes before handing it back. He looked at every picture carefully, but had to admit he could not tell which was a boy. Give up? Mrs. Farson asked. They're all boys, Josh. Students and teachers alike. There are no women working here. And so it was that 2 weeks later, Josh finished his morning shower, neatly put away the nightgown he had worn, and slipped on his white bra, half-slip, knee socks, tucked his blouse into his skirt, and prepared for his first morning of class as Ashley. Mrs. Farson had been right about not feeling odd at the school, for, on the way to his class, although he passed many girls, he never spotted a single boy. With his heart in his throat, he followed a group of girls into the classroom building and found the room he'd been assigned to. Taking a seat in the back of the room, he set down his new purse and the pink and white bag he carried his gym uniform in. Good morning, ladies, announced the teacher, an attractive woman in her 20s. Welcome to Southwood Academy and your new home base. I am Miss Bayer, your instructor for home base and possibly several other classes, depending on your schedules. Josh was surprised at just how good-looking his teacher was. Mrs. Farson had sworn that there were no women at Southwood, but he couldn't even begin to think of the beautiful woman in front of the class as a man. Most of you girls know each other by now," Miss Bayers continued, "but since we do have a few new girls here, I'm going to ask them to come up front to be introduced. After I finish with the new girls, I want all of you stand and say your names." As his name was called, Josh reluctantly took his place next to several others in front of the class. He hoped that Mrs. Farson was right about everyone being boys, but these kids just didn't look like boys to him. Some had long hair and some had short hair, but none had hair like a boy. If they didn't have curly or wavy hair, they wore it pulled back in ponytails or some other pretty style. The students at their seats were all sitting with hands neatly folded on the desks in front of them, their legs crossed at the knee or ankles. They were of course all dressed alike with blue skirts, white blouses and blazers, and as Josh noticed, they all seemed comfortable and at ease in their skirts. Once the introductions were finished, the new students were allowed to go back to their seats while Miss Bayer explained what the new students could expect at Southwood School. "I realize that some of you girls are not here by choice, and I realize that you may be confused and scared, but there really isn't any reason to be. You'll soon see that this is much like any other school. You'll have classes, tests, and homework, and you'll be graded just as you would anywhere else. Of course, for however long your parents may decide to send you to Southwood, you will be expected to be young ladies. Trust me when I say that you'll soon learn to enjoy being girls. I know I did." As Miss Bayers finished her orientation speech, a bell rang signaling the exchange of classes. Josh picked up his books, purse, and gym bag and started towards his next class when Miss Bayer stopped him and asked him to come to her desk, along with another of his classmates. "Mrs. Farson asked me to keep an eye out for you, Ashley," she said with a warm smile. "She thought you might have just a little trouble getting used to things here." Josh wanted to tell her that he hated the school. He hated being in a school full of sissies, and that he probably even hated her. But the smile on her face and the soft tone of concern in her voice held him back. "We have a special program for new girls, Ashley. It's called the Big Sister Program." Placing one arm around Josh's shoulders, she gently drew him closer to the desk. "Susan here," she continued, "is going to be your big sister for your first year. She'll help you get used to being a Southwood and being a girl." Susan came over to Josh's side of the desk and smiled. "You're going to love it here, Ashley. I'll introduce you to some of the other girls and we'll have a great time." Miss Bayers and Susan's enthusiasm was irresistible, and before long, Josh found himself smiling. "Thanks, Susan," he said softly. "That would be really nice." Miss Bayers gave them both a quick hug and sent them off to the next class. Josh was grateful to find out that Susan would be in all of his classes with him, and the two quickly made arrangements to sit next to each other whenever possible. As the day wore on, they became fast friends, and as promised, Susan introduced him to several other girls who were happy to share a spot at their lunch table with him. The conversation soon turned to Josh, and he found himself telling the story of how he and his cousins were punished. "Those dresses sound dreamy, Ashley," one of the girls commented. "I thought it was more like a nightmare," laughed Josh. "I hated every minute of it. My mom dressed me like a girl for Halloween. A couple of years ago, a girl named Debbie volunteered. It felt so good that I didn't want to take the dress off. I used to sneak into her room and dress up in her clothes so much she finally gave up and bought me my own. My parents thought I made such a cute little girl that they dressed me like one since I was a baby. They sent me here to school so they wouldn't have get me a haircut and dress me like a boy. Doesn't it bother you guys to be dressed like girls all of the time?" "I hated it at first." Another girl shrugged. "But the longer you're here, the easier it is to forget that you're a boy." "You know, you're right," added another girl. "I was so mad at my parents for sending me here that I didn't want to go home for weekends breaks at first. Now I just love going home to see them. I shop with Mom, go to plays with her and Dad, and just have a whole lot of fun." "Your fathers don't mind your being here?" Josh asked, Wouldn't they rather have sons to take to ball games and stuff like that? My dad didn't like it at first, but he's gotten used to having a daughter now, and I go out with my dad all the time," said Lynn, an older girl with pretty red hair who had just joined the group. "We have a great time together." Just then, the bell rang to end the lunch period, leaving Josh and Susan to quickly clean up and go to the next class. "You're going to love gymnastics," Susan told Josh. "It's a lot of work, but it's so fun. I'm going to be so embarrassed standing around in my leotards. Couldn't they let us wear shorts or something like that?" remarked Josh as they entered the locker room. "You'll get used to the leotard. We all did," Susan answered with a smile. "We're all going to be wearing the same thing, so you won't look any dumber than the other girls." Standing in his slip and bra, Josh looked around the locker room and saw his classmates laughing and changing, as though nothing was wrong with a group of boys taking off skirts and putting leotards on. Once again, Josh wanted to say that he thought the whole class was nuts, that they shouldn't be doing this, but once again, peer pressure won out. All of the boys in his class had been so nice to him so far, and he was going to need friends at this new school. So Josh, instead of causing problems, Josh stepped out of his slip and reached for the pink and blue leotard in his gym bag. "Don't forget your belt," Susan reminded him, pointing to Josh's gym bag. "These leotards are kind of uncomfortable without it. I'm not really sure how to use it." Josh stammered, "I've never worn anything like this before." "It's really simple once you get used to it," Susan replied, stepping out of his slip. "You have to make sure you've got all of your private parts pushed up inside of you, or it hurts like crazy." Josh watched in amazement as Susan, without any embarrassment, removed his panties, pulled up his belt, pushed his genitals up, and finished pulling up the belt. Once everything was in place, he calmly put his panties back on and pulled on his leotard. "You look just like a girl," Josh blurted out as he stared at his friend's crotch. "That's the idea, silly," laughed Susan as he playfully tugged at Josh's panties. "Now hurry up and get dressed." Susan was right about making sure things were all in the right place. Josh soon learned. He may be dressing like a girl, but the pain he felt was a reminder that he was still a boy. He made a quick adjustment to relieve the pain, then pulled on his panties and leotard. Hurrying to the gym, he and Susan took their places among the other similarly dressed students. While an attractive teacher called roll, Josh quickly looked around at the other students, noticing that if he hadn't have been in the locker with them, he'd have thought they were all girls. They curved in all the right places for girls his age, her noted, and they looked great in their tight leotards. Seconds later, Josh realized that he probably looked the same as they did. "Ashley, I realize that you're new here, but you must pay attention if you're going to do well in this class," the teacher said with a smile. Josh, shaken from his dream, smiled back. "Sorry, Miss Adels," he replied politely. "As I said," Miss Adels continued, "some of you girls are new and may feel a little self-conscious about the way you're dressed. Please don't let that bother you," she smiled. "You're simply dressed the way any girl your age would dress for gymnastics, and soon you'll forget all about it. Your belts probably feel uncomfortable to you, but they serve a purpose and you will be required to wear them for gymnastics, swimming, or any time you may be wearing slacks. Soon you'll get used to them and the way you look when you're wearing them." "See, told you so," Susan whispered. "It's no big deal." It was a big deal for Josh, though, and it took most of the class time before he even began to get used to the way he was dressed and having to pull down the leg opening of his leotard. Every time he did stretching exercises didn't help. Back in the locker room after class, Josh was faced with another problem. All students were expected to shower after class. Fortunately, though, the showers were individual units, and he noticed that the other kids wrapped towels around themselves as they entered or left the showers. Still not wishing to take any chances, though Josh first wrapped a towel from his chest down before removing his panties and belt in the shower. Afterwards, as he stepped into his slip, he turned to Susan. "I never thought I'd be happy to put a slip on until now." "You're silly," Susan giggled, "but I'll bet that in a couple more weeks you'll be running around the dorm in your panties and bra just like the rest of us." Josh shot Susan a horrified look. "I doubt that'll ever happen," he exclaimed as he pulled on his skirt. "Believe me, it will," laughed Susan. As time passed, Josh found it harder and harder to resist fitting in with the rest of the students at his new school. At first, he was determined to wear only jeans and shorts if he wasn't in class, but he soon realized that it really wasn't going to help at all. The only shorts or jeans he had were cut to fit a young girl, and with his belt on, that's exactly what he looked like. No matter how hard he tried, he could not make himself look like a boy when he was wearing a flowered top and pink, cuffed leg shorts. It didn't take long after that for him to begin wearing some of the culottes and casual skirts his mother had given him. Weeks passed, and one night, after much prodding from Susan, he agreed to attend a floor parties given by some of the kids on his dorm floor. Everyone would be wearing PJs, so for the first time since he came to the school, Josh left his room wearing a baby doll nightgown and his fluffy pink slippers. Susan practically had to push him inside the room where the party was being held, but a room full of giggling, laughing boys in nightgowns, some with their hair in curlers, quickly put him at ease. Soon he found himself laughing and joking with a group of boys who were telling him how cute his baby doll outfit was and how much they liked the way his mother had done his hair. One thing led to another, and after helping to do another boy's toenails in several different colors, Josh found himself on the receiving end of a pedicure. Josh didn't object as a boy placed cotton balls between his toes to separate them. He didn't even object as pink nail polish was carefully spread over each nail. He didn't bother objecting since he figured it was all in fun. And at the time, he was busy setting another boy's hair into large pink rollers. Back in his room later that night, Josh couldn't understand why he had let someone put nail polish on his toes or how he could have let the other boys fix his hair for him. What really puzzled him was that for several hours that night, he had really become Ashley, the girl his parents tried so hard to make him into. Not only had he forgotten that he was a boy, he had loved every minute of it. He smiled to himself, adjusted the top of his PJs, and fell fast asleep. If Josh had any further thoughts of rebelling, they were quickly forgotten as he became a model student. His grades were A's and B's, and his behavior was every parent's dream. His teachers seemed to notice the change in his attitude and did all they could to encourage him. Soon he began to take more of an interest in his clothes and hair, wearing dresses and skirts more often, and even began to wear ribbons or other ornaments in his hair. He noticed the changes himself, but somehow the friendships he'd made, the horseback riding he'd come to love, and all of the other wonderful activities seemed to be more important than the kind of clothes he wore. Mrs. Farson kept his parents up to date on what was happening to Josh, and just before the 2-month waiting period for visiting ended, they saw the proof for themselves in one of Josh's many letters home. In past letters, he had grudgingly admitted that things weren't as bad at the school as he'd expected, but this letter was filled with enthusiasm. He loved being able to go swimming or horseback riding when he finished his homework and was making many new friends. The end of the letter jumped off the page as his parents read it, for it was not signed. Josh's past letters were but as Ashley. Mrs. Farson was happy for Josh's parents when they called to tell her of the letter. She had assured them at the beginning that there would be no pushing of Josh to accept being a girl. It was simply a matter of constantly being treated as one, and the expectation from his teachers and other students to act like one. The school's methods had not failed in over 50 years, and Josh would not be the one to break that streak. It had taken nearly 2 months of peer pressure, but Josh had finally given up. Wearing a skirt and blouse to school no longer seemed strange to him. The leotards of gymnastic class were comfortable, and even the pink and blue swimsuit he wore to the pool seemed normal to him. The weekend for his parents' visit finally arrived, and his parents were amazed to see the son they had left there 2 months before greet them in a pink flowered sundress. His hair pulled back in a neat flip, the slightest trace of pink on his lips, and his fingers flashing a shade of pink that matched his dress. They walked around the grounds as Josh showed them the school and stables and introduced them to Susan and his other friends. "You look so pretty in that outfit, Ashley." His mother said proudly, "I'm really happy to see you wearing it." "Thanks, Mom," Josh said as he gave his mother a hug. "Sometimes it feels nice just to wear something loose and comfortable like this. All of my girlfriends think I look good in it too." "Who did your hair for you, honey?" his father asked. "That style really makes you look great." "Susan taught me how to fix my hair," Josh replied proudly. "Do you really like it, Daddy?" "It's very becoming on you. Makes you look more like a young lady, that little girl," his father answered, quietly noting that Josh had referred to him as Daddy. "You're sweet, Dad," Josh giggled as he kissed his father's cheek. "Thank you both for letting me come here. I've never had so much fun in school before." "We're so happy that you like it here, Ashley," his mother said as she brushed a stray lock of his hair into place. "We were so worried about you before. I promise I'll never do anything like that again." "Mom," Josh smiled. "On one condition, though." "One condition." His father began to show signs of irritation. "I don't think you're in any position to make demands. Calm down, Dad." Josh smiled and kissed his father again. "The condition is that I get to stay here." "You want to stay here?" his father asked in surprise. "You realize what that would mean, don't you? That I'd have to keep wearing girls' clothes and act like a girl." "Yeah, I know, but I sort of like it." "We could talk to Mrs. Farson," Josh's mother quickly added. "I'm sure she'd have some thoughts on this." Later, in Mrs. Farson's office, Josh's parents explained his wish to keep attending Southwood as Ashley. Mrs. Farson saw no problem with that. Josh's grades were certainly high enough, and he didn't mind spending more time as Ashley. "There may be a problem several years down the road, though, folks," she informed his parents. "That problem is puberty. Despite Josh's best intentions, in a matter of a year or two, he could begin those changes which will take him from a boy to a young man. If he's no longer able to fit in as Ashley, I'll have to ask you to find another school." Josh's parents looked at each other, then at him. "I'll do my best to fit in, Mrs. Farson, I promise," he vowed. "I'll get good grades and do whatever you ask." "I'm sure you will, Ashley dear." Mrs. Farson smiled. "But we can't have our girls looking like boys. It would ruin the reputation of the school." "I guess we'll just have to hope for the best, honey," his dad said as he gently squeezed Josh's hand. "Maybe things will work out for the best." "There is an alternative if you're really serious," Mrs. Farson said as she stared at Josh's family. "What would that be?" asked Josh's mother. "Something permanent?" she asked in a worried tone. "Heavens no," Mrs. Farson laughed. "Nothing at all permanent, more of a way to buy time, you might say." "Buy time?" Josh's father asked. "I'm confused. Please explain what you mean." "Your daughter here is on the brink of becoming a man," Mrs. Farson explained. "If she does, she cannot attend Southwood. What I'm suggesting would delay puberty until Ashley can finish school here or decides to leave." "How can you do that?" Josh questioned. "And what would it do to me?" "I don't do anything, Ashley, honey," Mrs. Farson explained. "That's up to you and your parents. I can recommend a doctor who would examine you and prescribe something that would prevent you from becoming a young man." "But what would it do to him? Specifically?" queried Josh's father. "Specifically, his male hormones would be put on hold. He'd develop a little more fat in his hips and backside. His features would soften a little more than they are, and his voice would not deepen. He'd be more girl than boy, but only for as long as he took the medication. After that, his mother asked with interest. After he stopped the medicine, the male hormones would start back up again, and he'd lose the fat and develop muscles just like any normal boy, just a little late. What about? Josh stammered. Breasts. Mrs. Farson finished his sentence for him. You may develop small breasts, but they'd be unnoticeable once you began to fill out as a young man. You mean that my body would actually change like a girl's? Josh asked. You wouldn't exactly look like a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Ashley, but with your belt on? You could probably wear a bikini at any public swimming pool without a problem. What about side effects? Josh's mother asked, her interest obviously aroused. Are there any side effects we should know about? The doctor will discuss all of that with you before you do anything, Mrs. Farson assured her. The most common is that Ashley here will begin to act more like a girl than ever before. She'll be more emotional, she may notice increased sensory awareness, and will have little sexual interest in females. In a nutshell, Ashley will be a young woman. Josh's dad turned to ask him if that was what he really wanted, but the smile on Josh's face provided the answer. Turning to his wife, he smiled. If it's okay with you, I have no problem with having a daughter around for a few more years. If you could give me that doctor's name, Josh's mother said to Mrs. Farson, I'm sure my daughter would appreciate it. The meeting ended with Josh hugging his parents and thanking them while tears ran down his face. I know I'm going to be happy, he cried. I'll be the best daughter you could want. Josh began his treatments shortly afterwards and was thrilled to notice the slight changes that were taking place in his mind and body. He insisted that Susan help take his measurements nightly, and soon the slight changes in size were becoming noticeable. The mental changes took their time coming, but before long, Josh noticed them too. Over the next few months, his measurements changed along with his attitude. He could tell that as predicted, he was becoming a girl, and he was thrilled. At the end of the school year, Josh's parents surprised him with the news that his aunt was going to be getting remarried, and that she wanted the 3 girls, Jennifer, Christine, and Ashley, to be bridesmaids. Josh was in heaven as he accompanied his mother, aunt, and cousins to be fitted for his dress. As he stood beside his cousins in a peach-colored satin gown, Josh took little notice of his aunt's stepson watching him. Carl. The twins' new brother had a history of being a problem child, much like the twins and Josh. Although his mother had custody from the divorce, she was unable to control him and requested that his dad take him over. It wasn't long after meeting Lisa that he fell in love and proposed to her. He told her all about Carl and the trouble he had caused over the years, and Lisa naturally mentioned how she had settled her sons down. Carl was stunned to find that the 2 sweet young girls he had met were actually Lisa's daughters. He fought the idea of feminizing Carl for as long as he could, but finally came to the realization that something drastic had to be done. Perhaps it would be for the best, he thought. There would be no end to the problems if Carl learned that his sisters were really boys, and it was breaking his ex-wife's heart not to be able to have Carl with her. After Carl's parents had a long talk with Allison and Dave, it was decided that Southwood School would be the best solution, and so plans were made to enroll young Miss Carol Smith. All that Carl knew was that his new family was moving to another state where he would be attending school with his sisters and cousins. What puzzled him were the odd smiles on the faces of Chrissy, Jenny, and Ashley, who were wondering how he'd look in the frilly dress, petticoats, and stockings they had helped his stepmother purchase for him to wear before he started his new school.